on to C, ordinance 2015-01 to repeal and recreate ambulance fees. Yes, we are aware of the section of the code that was rewritten, amending 5-1-1. Yes, what we are doing is legal. And Chief Buchholz, I saw you back there. You still here? Can you come on up and explain some of the changes that you're making to the fees and what the reasoning behind that is? You can go.
On your desk, the board members, I put a comparison between the two, the current and the proposed, just to help.
I believe there's just a couple of clarifications that were made on here based on the fees that were being charged and what was reported in the ordinance. And I'm not sure if the billing company got a copy of a draft that was earlier than what was approved, but it was more or less a clarification to make sure we got our ordinance clarified so we can get the billing company clarified so that they match. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I believe all the fees are exactly the same until you get to the no transport.
ALS supplies. ALS supplies, BLS supplies.
Oh, yeah. The ALS supplies and BLS supplies, we have been billing for those for years, and on the draft that the billing company got, those fees of $40 were represented on their sheet, but our ordinance did not show that. So I'm recommending that you put those two $40 fee back into the ordinance on the approved copy.
Then you've got a change for oxygen, a $60 proposed fee. Is that the same situation?
That's the same situation.
Okay.
Somehow that got eliminated off of the ordinance copy, but they've been billing it all along.
And then we've got BLS no transport fee for non-resident. It is currently at $450 and you want to reduce it to $155?
Correct. The copy that they have had 155 and 105. I tried to review back in the minutes from the meetings when that was done, and I believe Mr. Bansky at the time did reduce it, and it should be 155 and 105. The billing company said that the 450 and the 250 was rather excessive compared to other municipalities too. They said for no transport that was very, very high. Most insurance companies probably wouldn't pay it.
And that appears to be the extent of the changes. Yep, I don't see anything.
I guess that's correct.
Just clarification.
Questions for the chief?
Yeah, Dan, so for the transport, what's been being billed, the lower amount?
For no transports,
For the no transport, yeah.
yes, the lower amount is what has been billed.
I just have one, I guess, kind of procedural question, assuming that we're inclined to act favorably on this. Whose responsibility is it? Is it yours, chief, or is it Kathy's, or whose responsibility is just to make sure we get this cleaned up with the billing company?
It's actually the clerk's responsibility to give the correct copy.
That in your, what? Yeah. Would you like to respond to that, Kathy, or not?
I will get it to our billing company.
Thank you.
This is actually a board action. It's not the fire department action. It's the board action to do the billing, and it's the clerk's responsibility to carry that out for the board.
Mr. Chairman, I will move to accept or adopt the current ambulance fees and then the proposed ambulance fees on the updated sheet that we have presented before us, and I so move.
Second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Yes, I've got one question. Mr. Macy, back on February, I went back on the minutes of February 14th, 2013. Is this, and there was it a resolution? There was an ordinance passed. Can we do this by having that ordinance already?
Yeah, if I'm understanding your question correctly, when I reviewed the agenda with the chairman and the clerk, I asked that same question, I think. How can you do this by a Appendix A? And I think that's what your question is. And the clerk said, well, I followed the model that was used the last time they did it. And I said, well, we got to find the ordinance that says, because the code book ordinance has the dollar amounts in the book. If you go to the website, because we have not updated the codified ordinance. So research was done, finding that pursuant to section 5-1-1, sub B, sub 6, town board shall possess the power to amend the fee schedule found in the town code appendix A from time to time by town board resolution.
Anything further?
We don't have to throw anybody in jail.
I think we're good.
This is a resolution to amend the, according to this, it's not an ordinance, it's a resolution. That's what we talked about on the phone, and we're going to research it. So we just need to change it to say that we're adopting a resolution to adopt the new Exhibit A. And I don't believe that that would be a problem with the agenda. People are notified that you're going to be acting on this topic. It's just changing it from an ordinance to a resolution.
So is Supervisor Fisher's motion correctly stated then?
I'd have to hear the motion back.
Mr. Fisher?
Okay, let's,
Or we just withdraw that motion to make a new motion.
sure, let's do that then. My motion would be, you can tell me if this is incorrect, my motion would be to modify Appendix A on ambulance fees and to adopt the proposed updated fees that are before us on the schedule that has been presented tonight. And I so move.
And direct the town clerk to prepare a resolution to that effect.
Exactly what I was going to say, thank you.
Is there a second?
There was one. Somebody had one.
It's a do-over.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to 8A, steps in the development of a 5-year capital plan project. There was nothing in the packets regarding developing or the amounts going into a capital project plan, and there was no discussion on it because there is no amounts going into any capital plan. This is a discussion on the steps for the development of a 5-year capital project plan. And I'll turn it over.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I don't think there are any legal issues with this at this point, since you're not going to be acting, and I'd like to save you some money and ask to be excused from the meeting.
You may go.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
See you.
Hopefully, everybody.
Have a great evening. Supervisor Fisher, I'll turn it over to you for the next 7 minutes.
Sure. Start the clock.
Well, then maybe I'll stay and listen.
We'll stay for 7 minutes. We'll be slow on the way out the door. What, people are leaving?
I'm just coming for a better view.
All right, did the clock start? Let's go. Quickly, this is just in really kind of an outline of where we need to go. We started the discussion back in November, really at the point in time of the annual budget hearing and adoption of the tax levy, and put together a real quick thing here of 11 steps, not necessarily in order, but that we're going to have to go through. So the title is Developing a Plan for Managing the Financial Resources of the Town of Waukesha. This step is already done. Adopt a resolution to create a capital project fund. The town board did that on December 11th, and that fund was funded to the tune of $850,000+. Next slide. we need to, the town board may have done this years in the past, but we actually have to adopt a definition of a capital project. And again, the accountant's going to be helping us with that. That'll probably have to have some monetary parameters, but we need to get a clear understanding what constitutes a capital project. Next slide, please. We will have to identify proper procedures for dispersing funds from the capital project. And I think Attorney Macy and the folks at Baker Tilly will have some guidance to give us in that regard, but we want to understand clearly the procedures we need to use when we disperse those funds. Next slide, please. We need to, this is advice of accountant, there are guidelines and we need to adopt a policy for the amount of fund balance which we should maintain in the general fund. We're not going to go into the details of that tonight, but we will be adopting a policy in that regard. Next slide, please. We will also be following the accountant's or auditor's advice, indicating to us that it would be proper to maintain a contingency balance in the capital project fund that is not assigned to any particular project. That's if projects end up being more costly than originally estimated. That's an accountant's recommendation. We'll follow through on that. Next slide, please. Identifying the proper procedures for transferring funds from the general project fund to the capital project fund and vice versa. I believe that we will be able to do that at the prerogative of the town board. Again, we need legal counsel advice on that as well. Next slide, please. Which you will see shortly tonight, is a presentation by the fire department here identifying short-term and long-term capital needs, estimates of costs associated with that. That'll simply be the first step along the way. Next one is a similar slide identifying short-term and long-term capital needs for the Department of Public Works, and the costs simply put in there. There's really kind of two components to that: equipment and roads. And the next one is we need to kind of have a catch-all place. There may be capital projects and capital needs that are not of the Fire Department or Public Works, so we'll want to identify those. Next, please. And then when we put all that together, and that's probably going to take several months here, we need to develop and adopt a capital plan which will put all of that together. It will prioritize by years, probably be a 5-year capital plan. The recommendation going forward on that will need to be done and reviewed annually, probably needs to be done by midsummer or thereabouts, so that's in place when we get into the annual budget cycle. And next and last would be, that's kind of part and parcel to it, we've had in our auditor's report strong recommendations to us. We need to adopt some formal guidelines or policies for how to invest funds. We don't have a whole lot of flexibility in that because a lot of that is dictated by state statute. So that's a preview of coming attractions, just for discussion. No action on that tonight. If there are any questions, take questions, but we're not going to act on anything tonight.
Any questions for Supervisor Fisher? Then we can move on. Thank you.